Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Cole Kopka. I'm the Assistant Director of PacTrans. We're very excited that you're joining us today. Before I introduce our director, I just wanted to go over a few logistics of how the Zoom webinar platform works in case you're not familiar. If you hover your cursor over your screen, you'll see two icons. We've disabled chat for this webinar. But the other one, Q&A, is where you would click and go to the Q&A panel to type in a question as you have them. We probably won't get to them during the presentation, but we'll get to them after. We've also enabled the upvote function. So if you see a question that you also have, you can upvote that question. And so the more upvotes a question gets, the higher priority it will take. And we've also enabled your ability to respond to questions in the Q&A. So as opposed to doing chat and Q&A, we're just going to keep it in the Q&A box. So with that, I will introduce our presenter for the day. Dr. Wang is a professor in transportation engineering in the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department here at the University of Washington, and also an adjunct professor in electrical and computer science engineering here at the UW. He's the founding director of the UW Smart Transportation Applications and Research Lab, STAR Lab, here at the UW, and has been the director of PacTrans since 2012. He is the 2018-2019 president of the Transportation and Development Institute at the Society of Civil Engineers. He started the ASCE Connected and Autonomous Vehicle Impact Committee in 2017 and co-chaired the 2018 and 2020 ASCE International Conferences on Transportation and Development. Dr. Wang's active research fields include traffic sensing, traffic safety, e-science of transportation, big data analytics, traffic operations and simulation, smart urban mobility, and more. He has received 3 US patents, published over 190 peer-reviewed journal articles, delivered more than 170 invited talks, and nearly 290 other academic presentations. He has served as a member of the Artificial Intelligence and Advanced Computing Committee for the Transportation Research Board, the IEEE Smart Cities Technical Activity Committee, and is associate editor of 3 journals. Without further ado, our presenter for today, Dr. Yinhai Wang.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the PacTrans webinar. So today, I'm going to share with you what we learned from the network-wide traffic sensor data. So we created a performance index called Traffic Performance Score. We also apply this score in a new website we just developed and tried to do some analysis about the COVID-19 impact. So today I'm going to co-present this with my PhD student, Zhiyong Cui, who is also the lead of the development team of the Traffic Performance Score website. So traffic is important to everyone. So we do a lot of online shopping now. We also go to different places using our own car, the transit systems. So traffic is really matter for everybody's daily life. So we care about this very much. And there's no surprise that you see traffic often makes the newspaper headlines. A lot of critiques or complaints about the traffic systems. And as transportation engineer, we often question ourselves, are we doing a good job? So how we could improve? So looking at these, the news items, we often consider how do we compare our performance today with yesterday, and did we really show some improvement? Recently, this outbreak of the COVID-19 also generated a lot of discussions about how COVID-19 may affect travel. So as we can see, like airplane travel, bus travel, roadway travel, and also the train travel, all seriously affected. And there are a lot of discussions on the social media about how COVID-19 affected our travel today and how the impact may last and affect future travel. So to answer these questions, we need to have a kind of performance measure and see how we can use that performance measure to quantify the impact from COVID-19 or maybe also other potential events. It is always easier if we are a traveler and we want to go somewhere. Let's say I want to travel from Factorio Mall in Bellevue and go to the University of Washington. I use my Google app and I put my destination down and it will show me the best route. Like in this case, like I can choose to use 520 and the travel time is 22 minutes. Or I can choose to use I-90, it is 1 minute longer. I can decide which one is the best for me. But if you look at transportation network, let's say this is the Puget Sound area freeway network. So this is, in general, very good traffic condition, but there are several yellow spots indicating some slowdowns there. And this particular snapshot you see is obviously worse than the previous one, but how much worse? So if we only look at a particular segment, it is very difficult for us to say our network traffic performs better today. How can we create and utilize the performance measure to give an overall performance index and showing how much worse is this rightmost figure compared to the middle one? Maybe everyone's familiar with this particular speed and the flow chart. This is from the traffic highway capacity manual. Highway capacity manual use level of services to quantify the roadway services. This particular method uses density, traffic density. Traffic density is very hard to measure, not like speed or volume. Also, the current highway capacity manual does not have all the approaches needed to quantify every segment of the network, and therefore gave an overall network performance measure. So the Starlab implemented a previous online system called Digital Roadway Interactive Visualization and Evaluation Network. This one, we had this function using the loop detector measurements, try to quantify the level of services for each roadway segment, and using the color to show their services. So this is still good for segment level, and it's good for visualize how the network performance look like. But we still do not have an overall performance index that will be giving a quantified number showing the performance. We know traffic is related to speed, volume, roadway geometrics, weather conditions, a lot of factors. This particular chart is showing the speed distribution with regard to time and milepost. If we look at this, we know where the speed is low, but is this a great indicator for the network level performance? It is not, because we do not know the congested segment is serving for a lot of traffic or only very few vehicles. So this snapshot shows actually the distribution of volume. We certainly want to combine speed information, volume, maybe distance all together, and try to create a better performance indicator. So just like we grade student work, we can give A, B, C, D, E, F, or we can give a percentage grade. But this single grade is basically the base for the overall performance of the student. Can we do a similar thing for our traffic network? So the Starlab studied on this matter, and we introduced traffic performance score for performance measurement from traffic system service providers' perspective. So this can be used at the segment level, corridor level, or network level. And we only use one single score. So we can talk about the performance of this particular network today and also any previous day, any particular event. So the traffic performance score ranges from 0 to 100. 0 means jam congestion, speed 0. And 100 means network-wide free flow speed travel. But traffic performance score is not simply a speed measurement. It's actually a weighted speed measurement by vehicle miles of travel. So this particular slide shows how traffic performance score is calculated. As you can see, we use vehicle speed represented by V, volume represented by Q, and L is the distance between loop detectors. We assume each loop detector covers a certain distance. So by multiplying these together, divided by the overall, volume and distance and the free flow speed of the segment. So we're calculating actually is weighted speed by vehicle miles of travel. And we consider this is much more reasonable than using just travel time or like a segment level speed. So we implemented this particular performance measure on our online platform. It's called TPS website. So here is the URL. You can try to use this website to do some interesting analysis. So this particular website offers you the performance, traffic performance score of each day and also at the current time. You can also do some analysis like the impact of COVID-19 button at the left panel. You can choose that and it will show a bunch of functions that you can use to do some fundamental analysis. Maybe you wonder, how did we do this? Where is the data from? So all the data came from the Washington State DOT's traffic sensor system. So there were over 44,000 inductance loop detectors deployed on the freeways. And these traffic detectors cover the main freeway corridors in the central Puget Sound area, including I-5, I-90, State Route 99, like 167, 405, 520, etc. So we really consider this is quite important for our work, and we appreciate WashDOT for streaming the raw data to the users. So the right side figure is showing the sensor locations. So you can see basically we can only do the analysis for the roadway segments with the traffic detectors installed. Maybe you are not familiar with what is loop detector. The photo at the lower right corner is showing some loop detectors. When you drive on, for example, I-5, you often see this kind of square-shaped cut on the road surface. So those are actually inductance loop detectors. And these loop detectors could be installed on-site, or could be prefactored. So basically, this sensor measures vehicle volume and the lane occupancy based on the magnetic field, the inductance. So I will not talk more about this loop detector thing, but anyway, the data we got for developing the TPS website was from the loop detectors in the area. So the TPS website can do performance assessments. So this particular figure is showing like you can select from what day to what day you want to see the overall traffic performance score changes. So this is actually selecting from May 10th to May 17th. So we can see actually the weekly pattern of the traffic performance changes is very obvious. So how do we use this particular online platform and the traffic performance score to do some analysis, particularly the impacts of the COVID-19? So let's review some of the major events happened over the past weeks. So Washington has the first COVID-19 case confirmed on January 21st. And on February 29th, Washington state health officials announced the first death from COVID-19 in the United States. So these are actually the two initial events related to COVID-19. Let's see the traffic performance scores. So we marked the January 21st and also February 29th on the right figure. We don't see any obvious difference from the past week. So this is pretty much still not generating any impacts from these two initial events. So following that one, when we see COVID-19 outbreak is very obvious. So the state took a lot of effective countermeasures. So on March 6th, so several major tech companies in Seattle area, they found some confirmed cases and they decided for the employees to work from home. So we can imagine that these big firms like Amazon, Microsoft, if they have their employees working at home, there will be obvious impact on traffic. On March 9th, the UW canceled all on-site classes and moved all the classes and even the finals to the online mode. So UW is also a big trip attraction and the generation place. So we can also imagine this will be associated with some traffic changes. On March 13th, Governor Yinhai announced the statewide school closures, expansion of limits on large gatherings. On the 16th, he announced the statewide shutdown of restaurants, bars, expanded social gathering limits. March 23rd, so Jay Inslee announced stay home, stay healthy order. This is considered the most restrictive measure. And again, on April 2nd, so he extended the stay home, stay healthy order through May 4th. So we can see actually here shows how the COVID-19 cases advanced. So on May 9th, we still have just 401 confirmed cases. On the 13th, we get 729. On the 16th, it's already 1,181. And the new case for that, that particular day was 157. And March 23rd, the total confirmed cases increased to 2649. And this has been just increasing very quickly, like on April 2nd, there's already 7,121 cases confirmed in Washington state. So we try to put these, the changes of the COVID-19 cases, deaths, and the new cases together with the traffic performance score changes. We can see that since like early March, we started to implement some of the countermeasures. So the traffic performance is changing quickly. From just the trend, you can see it was like as low as maybe 85% and quickly improved to over 95% and maintained for a while. And now you see actually the performance started to get worse. That indicates, even we still have the stay home, stay healthy order, people started to recover some of the travel activities. So let's look at this traffic performance score changes and how they associate with these important countermeasures. So here we marked A, B, C, D, E, F. So A is the tech company office shutdown. not shut down exactly, but they encourage employees to work from home. So this actually associated some changes, from like traffic performance score from 83.5% in the week of January 21st and through actually February 28 to about 92% from March 6 to March 12th. And then Governor Yinhai announced statewide school closure on March 13 and shutdown of the restaurant bars on March 16. So after this, the average traffic performance score increased to 95.9%. So this is quite a significant improve. And since Governor Yinhai announced the stay home, stay healthy order, so the traffic performance increased to 98% and stay there for some time. So we see the reduced amount of travel, and how does that affect total vehicle miles of travel? So let's also look at the same 6 events I just mentioned earlier. So like the tech company office shut down on March 6th, and then the UW canceled all on-site classes on March 9th. So from like event A started to event B, so the reduction of the vehicle miles to travel was like 7.16%. And then B, from event B to event C, that was like another 8% drop. And then C to D is like a 15% drop. So event E is stay home, stay healthy order announced by Governor Yinhai on March 23rd. So this is associated with 28% drop. So this percentage is not from the base, it's from the previous level. So if you look at from the base, we have some measures about that, and the deepest drop like occurred in the late March, and the percentage drop from a regular level is like 64%. So that's a quite a significant vehicles mile travel reduction. If we consider gasoline tax tied to this, to all the transportation work, so we can imagine the transportation investment is going to be a problem with this particular VMT job. So this particular chart shows the changes from week to week. Let's say in the early March, we have this vehicle miles of travel still fluctuating, sometimes increase, sometimes decrease. And since March 2nd, we see actually it started to decrease constantly. And in the week of March 23rd, this has the biggest drop. And this drop trend stayed until the end of March, but started in April. Even governor extended the homestay order. So we see actually a slight increase of the vehicle miles for travel on our major freeway network in the central Puget Sound area. So this particular chart shows the vehicle miles of travel changes from February, early February to May 10th. So the blue line is showing vehicle miles of travel. So we can still see a very clear pattern in each week. So we consider if people staying home, do they treat every day just like weekend days? Obviously, that's not. So we still see like on the regular weekdays that people are busier. And then on the weekend days, the travel, the vehicle miles of travel is much lower. If we consider before the outbreak of the COVID-19 is the baseline. So the green line is showing how the following weeks actually compare to the baseline time period. So we can see actually the deepest drop is around March 29th. So that is about 64% reduction from the baseline level. It's certainly ideal if we could compare these numbers for the same time of year. But because this website is new, we don't have a full year data. Actually, we started to accumulate data in November. So the data actually is best to November 2019. So we cannot compare like this March to the last March. But we did look at the Washington State DOT's traffic dashboard. We actually see they show a similar trend. So I consider this comparison still very meaningful and showing the key changes in vehicle mass travel. If we consider the home stay order basically eliminated all unnecessary trips to the fundamental functions of our society or people's daily life. So this gave us a chance to measure what are the fundamental trips during this home stay time period. So we consider trips occurred during this time period is actually all necessary trips to maintain the minimum operation, normal operation of our society, and also for the basic needs of everybody's family life. So we try to see how many percent of the trips of our regular days is actually for the fundamental life needs. So we use this traffic performance website and try to select March 30th to April 5th as the week that we can measure the fundamental trips. And here's what we found. This particular chart is showing the regular day, like a vehicle mass travel indicated in blue. And the orange color is showing vehicle mass travel during that specific time period we consider is only for fundamental life needs. So the ratio is indicated in the green line, the gray line. So we can see pretty much the fundamental VMT is about 40 to 50% of our regular VMT. So which means during our regular life, we have more than 50% of the trips are actually extra trips, not just for satisfying the fundamental life needs. Those are important for economic development, but understanding the size of our fundamental trips is also important for our planning under emergencies. So how does the traffic speed and volume relationship look like during the COVID-19? So this is actually some curve that the traffic engineers are familiar with. So in the regular day, I think this is a kind of like a reverse lambda curve. So basically, we see vehicle travel at free flow speed when the volume is low. And when getting close to the capacity, so the curve will bend, indicating that there are speed reductions, maybe forced flow. And then if the traffic break down, so means traffic speed change from high speed phase to the low speed phase. So we see congestion happened. So the chart shown on this slide is actually the standard chart. Let's see over the COVID-19 time period, what we observed. So this is actually an animation. It started January 22nd. If you look at the x-axis, it started January 22nd and go all the way to May 13th. If the traffic volume is not reaching to the capacity, you just see actually pretty much the flat part on the top. So after we implement actually these measures, we can see gradually the traffic volume reduced, and we only see actually the top part of this speed volume curve, which means we don't observe the congestions in most of the part of the road. So this is actually a busy corridor, I-5. We did a similar thing for multiple other roadway segments, and we got similar observations. So how did this COVID-19 affect the volume on the road? So this particular chart also shows the changes since early February to today. So basically, interestingly, we tend to believe that the morning peak may have like a more dense traffic, but during this time period, actually we observed the whole thing. We found actually the afternoon peak carry more traffic from the volume perspective. So the red line showing the evening, the afternoon peak, and the blue line showing the morning peak. So we see for both morning and the afternoon peak, we have lower traffic volume after we implemented the countermeasures against the COVID-19. And March 29th is pretty much the lowest that we observed to date. And then this increasing trend is also quite obvious. So we see actually this increasing is steady, not like fluctuating, sometimes high, sometimes low. So this is something we have to pay attention, and we need to consider. Even we extended homestay order, will people still follow this, particularly given the weather is getting nicer in the Seattle area? So would people hold themselves from traveling? So do we need to apply for other effective solutions, just try to prevent the COVID-19? We look at every segment of our major freeway network and we rank them. So we found actually before and after the outbreak of the COVID-19, some of the roadway segment, the importance of these segments actually shifted. So here are some examples, like 405 southbound from milepost 24 to 26. It was ranked number 16 highest volume segment. Now is number 6, so it increased quite significantly. On the other side, there are also some segments actually we see the volume they are carrying reduced. For example, I-5 southbound from milepost 163 to 161 to 163. So it was ranked number 9, highest volume segment, but now it drops to number 32. So it's kind of interesting to see with the reduction of the travel, and also with the purpose of travel shifted, how the role of these major roadway segments changed. Another thing I heard a lot, actually a lot of people talking about, during this COVID-19 time period, we see more vehicles are speeding. So it's kind of interesting to see, do we actually have evidence about the vehicle speeding? So we consider if there are only fewer vehicles traveling on the road, certainly that gives more room for vehicles to run. And there could be some drivers try to travel much faster than the speed limit. But actually, after we pull the data from the segments and the data analysis, we found actually we did not have very obvious evidence showing that people having more speeding behavior. So one thing I want to point out is that we don't really have individual vehicle speed data. All we have is actually vehicle speed data aggregated to 1 minute level. So if this 1 minute has only one vehicle and this vehicle is speeding, so we got this particular individual vehicle speeding data. If one vehicle is traveling at 50 miles per hour, another is traveling at 70 miles per hour, so we'll see the average of these two, which is 60. So we have to say we don't have the right set of data to provide a precise analysis of this important topic. But still, if we consider during the COVID-19 time period, volume is lower. So we have a better chance to observe fewer vehicles in each 1 minute interval. And the speed level somehow is closer to maybe those fewer vehicles. If there are more vehicles speeding, we can still get a clear indication from the 1 minute data. So this chart actually is one of the examples that we from our analysis. This is actually I-5 southbound milepost 154 to 181. So you see different colors. So the blue color is showing the percentage of the time segments that had speed about 65 miles per hour. This certainly increased, those percentage like speed higher than 70, 75, 80, 85. So, but inside this, total percentage of vehicles with speed higher than 65, you see actually other colors indicating other levels of speeding. So the bottom one indicated by the red line is showing 85 miles per hour speed. So we can see actually, if you consider the beginning of the job is the beginning of the COVID-19 time period, and March 29th actually indicates the bottom of the vehicle miles of travel. And this, the right side of the figure is showing during the COVID-19 time period, we did not really see the percentage-wise, speeding behavior is more than before the outbreak of the COVID-19. So we also considered, could this be because, for some very busy urban segments that we always see congestion and we don't really see like the room for people to speed. We also pull some more segments in the busy urban area, like downtown Bellevue, downtown Seattle. We conducted similar analysis. We did not find also, the speeding evidence. So pretty much we say the speeding behavior did not get worse. It actually even shows the percentage-wise the speeding behavior is even improved. So this is actually our quick analysis of the major findings, like using the new online platform and the traffic performance score that we created recently. So we see COVID-19 has significantly affected vehicle miles per travel volume in the central Puget Sound area. So the biggest VMT drop is 64%. So it's multiple segments is bigger than 60%. Traffic performance improved with the implementations of the countermeasures against COVID-19. So this also indicates that the countermeasures our state applied against COVID-19 is functioning, at least from the travel perspective. It does cut the unnecessary travel. And we also get the opportunity to observe people's fundamental trip needs. So how big is that size of those trips for maintaining life, basic needs, and the fundamental operations of our society. So this is only about 40 to 50% of the regular day trips. Also, we did analysis about the speeding behavior. We did not really see any evidence showing increasing level of speeding during the COVID-19 time period. On the contrary, we even see the percentage actually decrease to some extent. Finally, we want to also talk a little bit about the traffic performance website. So this is actually something we try to see if we can create a single index to give a good measurement of the performance of the entire network. And this particular method we created is applicable to all kinds of roads. And the measures we use are speed and the volume. So they're not difficult to measure. So we consider this TPS will have some potential to serve for roadway networks performance measurement for different kinds of roads. And the website we developed is also very scalable. So finally, I want to acknowledge the support from PackTrans and the Starlab. And we really appreciate Watchdog for providing the data support. And we have actually our very talented student team members contributed significantly to the work to develop the website and also conduct the analysis. So the students are Zhiyong Cui, Meixin Zhu, Pengfei Wang, Yang Zhou, Qianxia Cao, Shuo Wang, and Ko Kopka. I really appreciate their hard work and believe there will be more interesting results from this team. So with that, I conclude my webinar and I want to open for questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that. And this is great. We have about 15 minutes for questions and we have a number of questions in the Q&A panel. Again, you can type a question in the Q&A panel. Also, if you see one that was also your question, you can click the thumbs up and it will upvote it to the top of the list. The first question is about data for the month of May. Are you seeing a trend upward in TPS variation? Oh, sorry. I see what's happening. Are you seeing an upward trend in VMT and a decrease in TPS from early May until today?
Yes, actually, if you look at the chart I showed earlier, so this trend is actually pretty obvious. I think this one is showing the traffic performance score, right? So actually, since the end of March, we started to see the traffic performance score start to fluctuate, and the size of the fluctuation is increasing. Even still not, it's far from the previous level before actually the COVID-19, but this trend is very clear and obvious.
Great. Next question is, how does the TPS correspond to level of service, and what is the threshold for breaking down? I believe that refers to with TPS.
Yeah, so I think this is a very good question. So actually, TPS is designed as a continuous variable. The level of service is actually a kind of layers, like you have 6 different levels, and they are based on the density. But in a lot of cases, we consider it's very hard to use this heavy capacity manual approach to do network-wide performance measurement because you don't have the density data. And even density data, you have to consider, how many different vehicles using this particular segment and for how long. So there certainly, if the level of service is poor, let's say level E or F, we see actually the traffic performance score is very low. But these two measures are not the same thing, and they're not perfectly synchronized. So we still need to investigate on how the corridor level approach provided by heavy capacity manual compares to the traffic performance score. But personally, I think that the TPS is much easier to implement, to calculate. And also it gave a very clear idea about what this is. If we look at highway capacity level of services, let's say level of service is D, and compared to level of services C, let's see if you look at that chart I showed earlier. They're still actually quite a big. You see like level of service C, right? So the density level from 18 passenger car per mile per lane to 26. So I think a single score is more favorable in my opinion.
Okay, great. Next question, how can TPS be applied to arterial traffic with signals?
Yeah, so this is a good question too. So at this point, we are using loop detectors from the freeways, mainly freeways. There are small portions of the road are actually arterials. So on the freeway, we look at the loop detector position and try to consider the middle of two loop detectors is actually the upstream loop detector covers part of this segment, and another downstairs, like a downstream loop detector, cover the other part, and consider speed is a constant to traverse from through the entire segment. But for arterial, because of the signalized intersections, so this point speed is very hard to be the segment, let's say space mean speed. So if we have 2 points, let's say Bluetooth sensor measuring travel time, and then we can convert that into space mean speed, and the same methodology can be plugged in without any challenge. But the difficulties in using this method for arterial is a reliable source of the speed data and volume data.
Okay, yeah, there's a similar question here also asking about local trips like within a neighborhood, and I would assume that's a similar answer.
Yeah, I think for the the neighborhood, we may not have a traffic detector to collect volume data. So maybe we have some kind of survey data periodically. Maybe some people could get some, for example, INRIX speed measurement or like a Google Map speed measurement. So those could be part of this analysis, but without the volume part, is the traffic performance score is kind of becoming a kind of average speed. Certainly, how many vehicles benefited from this high speed, how many vehicles suffered from that low speed, that will be a more fair assessment of the overall performance. But without enough data, I think we cannot take the full advantage of this particular methodology.
Yeah, okay. I've got a few more. Have you correlated any of the TPS variation with weather conditions on weekend days, for example?
Actually, we are doing that work. We're actually also doing the analysis about how Seahawks game in the Seattle area may affect traffic. So we have some fundamental analysis for those things. We have not finished the weather analysis. For the Seahawks analysis, we actually found during the Seahawk days, traffic performance are better than the days without Seahawks games. Maybe people are aware of those games and they try to avoid travel to those locations. I think that could be a major reason, but we need more in-depth analysis, collecting more data to give a reliable conclusion. So we'll certainly do the weather analysis, but we need to get the weather data. And also, let's say if we talk about the rain, how rain affects roadway performance. This is going to be, very difficult to do the analysis because Seattle's rain, in a lot of cases, is very light, but they also occasionally heavy rain. I guess we need to classify the rain event in more categories so we can conclude better and closer to the reality. Other events like snow, I think will be easy, but this is something we're currently doing, and hopefully we can get the results in several months.
Okay. How is VMT calculated since VMT is not directly measurable?
This is a good question too. Actually, for the loop detectors that we can collect volume and also not the speed directly. It's called the lane occupancy, and the lane occupancy can be converted into speed. So from the sensors, we have volume and also speed. And the Washington freeway system has very good sensor system. It covers every lane. So we put all these lanes data together. We know the total volume, and this total volume traveled for this entire segment at this speed. So we know like how many vehicles traveling for how long based on the loop detector data. And we add these up as the vehicle miles to travel. But I have to point this out that this is not the overall state vehicle miles of travel. It's only on the major freeway network, so with the traffic sensors. I assume there is also a relationship, like how many % of the state VMT are actually carried by the freeway system. If we know that ratio, we can convert the freeway measurements into the overall state VMT.
Yeah, good. This is a question about the fundamental trip charts you were showing. The question is why normal VMT is not equal to 100%. So I'm assuming the question is why are those blue bars not all the way up at 100%?
Yes, this is actually the normal VMT we calculated is actually from a certain time period, and we have a base ratio. So Zhiyong actually is the person who did the calculation. So Zhiyong, can you provide some insight views about this particular chart?
Oh yeah, like so the VMT actually it is like we calculated for the whole like northwest region, and we compare the normal VMT with the minimum VMT we observed during the COVID-19. And so in the right y-axis, it only shows the ratio between the fundamental VMT and the normal VMT. So it is just a percentage, right? So the normal VMT, actually it is shows on the left y-axis. So they are kind of not quite related. So that's, I'm guessing like, that's why the normal VMT not equal to 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so I got the point. I think this is actually, we show the normal VMT in the real number. And the ratio on the right side is actually showing the gray line, showing how the orange bar compares to the blue bar.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Next question has to do with some of your content on speeding. Was the level of speeding analysis based on data stations with speed traps only, or did you also include calculating speed using occupancy and assumed vehicle length on a vehicle loop? Is the calculated speed accurate enough to help you make conclusions that fewer people are speeding?
We don't have the speed trap data. So all we got the data is from the loop detectors. So the loop detector, if only measure one vehicle in 1 minute period, so that particular speed measurement is the vehicle speed. Whether this speed measurements very accuracy, so I cannot say this is very accurate and to the level of speed enforcement, but we did do the analysis and try to identify the measurements with potential errors. If there are some errors, some of the errors we can correct based on the sensitivity of the loops. Some of the errors we cannot correct and we'll just drop the data or like impute from the reliable sensors. So this is not something we can give a solid conclusion about how many people are speeding on the roadway. So this is only indicating during the COVID-19 period compared to before the COVID-19. So do we observe the general trend of the speeding behavior increase? So given this, the source of the data, so we cannot say the speed measurement is as accurate as the radar guns that the police would use. But I think they are meaningful enough for traffic engineers analysis.
Okay, great. This last question is asking if you would discuss a little bit like when you feel like it's more appropriate to use which performance measures.
You know, I've been trying to do the performance measures over the traffic system for many years, and I just did not see any measures is good enough for the network level analysis. So speed or travel time is always good for a particular segment, or from the user's perspective. You know, I want to travel from origin to destination. I want to select my route based on the travel time. But if you are a transportation agency that you manage a transportation network, you want to see overall your system is performing at what level. So if you see majority of the segments are performing very well, but maybe those segments don't serve majority of the traffic, so you still cannot conclude this particular network's performing well. So if we consider volume, speed, somehow speed is representing travel time, and also the distance that people can maintain the speed. So I think these factors all combined together, I think that will be more comprehensive measurement of the overall performance. So our team developed this after we try multiple different things, and we consider this TPS is probably the most easy and convenient one to use, and also representing the performance better than level of services, travel time, speed, or volume.
Okay, and I have a bit of a follow-up on that. So we know our goal is to provide mobility while minimizing VMT. We can't afford to build our way out of congestion, and transportation is a large contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. I think maybe the question this person was asking with regard to what types of performance measures to be using was hoping that you would discuss kind of the efficacy of using vehicle-based delay metrics, if that makes sense.
That's a very good question. I'm not sure if I can provide a good answer at this point. You know, traffic provides 22% of the PM 2.5. So certainly traffic also have a lot of health impact. But simply looking at efficiency, reliability, and effectiveness, I think the TPS will be a good measurement. If we look specifically for other things like the health impact, I guess only these things is not enough. We need to create another thing that will measure the performance in those aspects better. So I guess this is still an open thing that we welcome our audience to provide your comments, suggestions to us. So we'll be very happy to make the improvements of the performance score.
Okay, great. Would you, for people who might have lingering questions, or if something comes up, or if they want to get more information from you or ask questions, do you have contact information that we can put on the screen or we can share with people?
Actually, it is on my first page.
Okay, perfect.
Of the PowerPoint. We have this email and my office phone number. Certainly, you can drop me a message by sending an email to me, Yinhai@uw.edu.
Great. And we are at 1:30, so we're going to stop here. I know there were a few last-minute questions that came in, and again, I would encourage everyone to reach out to Dr. Wang directly if you want to discuss more, get more information on this, or if you want to partner, if you have ideas on how to make this tool more versatile. I know it's still kind of in its varying development phases. So with that, we thank you very much for participating, and thank you, Dr. Wang and Jiang, for this presentation, and we will conclude for the day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thank you.